Welcome to Unofficial Canon, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Tavin.
I'm Brendan.
And we are continuing the never-ending journey that is our discussion on Phantom Menace. I'm feeling better since the last episode, though.
Yeah, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel now.
We're getting very close. And we're definitely making more sense of this political narrative that's going on in this movie.
As best we can.
But, you can only fix something so much. Okay, so last week we stopped talking on Anakin's tests with the Jedi Council. Yoda was being a jerk to a 9-year-old for no apparent reason. Now we return to Palpatine's apartment.
Right.
But before that, and this is actually a little smart little editing thing that I noticed, is that it's maybe close to twilight, not quite twilight on Coruscant, and we get a couple just city shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Floaty cars going by and things
CGI
like that.
buildings
And then we get a shot of the balcony area where we see Maul and Palpatine talking earlier. It's very short. And then we cut to Palpatine's apartment we can see out the window. We're seeing Queen Amidala just staring out the window, and we kind of see the infrastructure of the building. And it's clear that that's the same location, which is smart little nod, hey guys.
Do you know who's the Sith in the hood?
So we're getting closer. I think that's a clue to put in the basket of who is the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Amidala's looking out the window being kind of scared, and Jar Jar comes over to try to confront her. And basically the only thing that's important in this scene is that he informs her that the Gungans have a grand army.
Yeah, which seemed like a weird little nugget drop. Because it's just the planet's under invasion. The Republic's not going to help. But don't worry. Don't worry. The planet came with its own army in the Gungans, who haven't tried to defend themselves yet. Or to use this big army.
Yeah, no, just to jump ahead, they run away.
Yeah.
Which I don't... you think they would have the advantage underwater, but it seems like their army is built for more, land combat.
The whole structure of the Gungan society makes no sense.
None at all. They also don't really have generals.
No.
But we'll get there. We'll get there at that point. Well, the scene is also weird, this little Easter egg they drop, because she doesn't react at all to the news. She still just looks sad. In the book, she kind of turns to Jar Jar and what did you say? The author is trying to insinuate that she picked up on something, right?
Right.
So that the audience pays attention at the same time, but we don't in the movie.
No.
So this is the first time that I noticed that Jar Jar mentioned they have an army.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just so convenient.
Super convenient. Anyway, so yeah, they Jar Jar says some things, and the Queen basically doesn't say anything other than I'm sad. And the door flings open behind them, and Palpatine and her captain guard person, Panaka or whatever his name is, comes flying through. And they inform them that Palpatine has been nominated for the Chancellor position. And so this is the scene that fixes this whole movie in my mind.
Okay.
So I'm going to probably have
Take me through this.
I'm going to probably have to go on a rant.
Go ahead.
Because I have to
Fix
explain
this movie for me, David.
my headcanon for what Palpatine, who I don't know if you realize this, Brendan, but Palpatine is the Sith Lord that we've been looking for. Yeah, that's the first very important piece to this puzzle. So they come into this room, and Palpatine is super happy at this news. And he tells the Queen, our situation will provide a strong sympathy vote. He sits down and he says, in his very Palpatine way, I will be Chancellor. So here's my theory on what's happened in this movie. So Palpatine's plan changed.
Okay.
In the middle of the movie, or the beginning of the movie when the Jedi got involved. Right? So, I'll go back to the Red Letter Media Review, which we've talked about a few times, because they say that, they don't, Palpatine would have had to know how every single chess piece would have moved in order for this to work out like this. So, here's my thinking. So, Palpatine's original plan was create the trade route tax, right? And then manipulate the Trade Federation, or what I feel like was maybe more like a splinter group of the Trade Federation. I don't get the sense that the Viceroy represents the full Trade Federation.
Right. He's a dissident group.
Yeah, that's my feeling. And to protest the thing as kind of the cover, and then he was going to kill the queen and all the government. Then at that point, Palpatine was going to use that to call a no confidence vote himself.
Okay. And that would make sense because he was the senator from Naboo.
Yeah.
So if he's like, holy crap, the head of state of my planet
is dead.
You
murdered them, and you want to send like a bloody...
You want to send a freaking Lambda-class shuttle to go scope out what's going on?
With a few people just to see what's going on. Like,
people are dying. You're a horrible leader.
Exactly, right? And then he probably has manipulated enough support in the Senate to get nominated, and then the strong sympathy vote from that would put him in chancellor. So his plan didn't really change that much. It's just he had to kind of roll with the punches.
Mm-hmm.
So like he didn't expect the queen to come back, which actually, if you rewatch the scene where they're landing on Coruscant, he does not look happy that she's showing up.
No.
Like this is kind of like a complication. And so he has to manipulate the queen and able to do it. And it kind of works in his favor, right? So that's basically why this whole movie happens.
Okay.
This is him putting himself in a position to be the chancellor.
Right. To begin his takeover.
Yes. To gain more power. Even if like at this point there isn't a long-term plan. Mm-hmm. It's just like he's a Sith. They want power.
Yeah, he wants unlimited power.
That's it. It's not that complicated. But it's not executed very well in the movie. Again, like, the movie's not made very well, but I feel like the story is a lot more clear to me now that I've spent too much time on this movie. Anyway, so yeah, so he tells them this, that he's going to be chancellor, and then the queen just is like, I'm going back to Naboo.
I'm going to be with my people.
Because, fun fact, and they really should have put a line in this, things are still going too slowly. Like, you still need to be voted in as chancellor, and that could be quite some time. And I think he has some throwaway line where it's like, it'll just have to be the way it is for now until I get into power.
Yeah, just ride this out.
Just, it'll be fine.
At least we didn't go to the courts.
Because, that would be slower.
They would take forever. Changing government? Easy.
So yeah, the queen decides to go back against everyone's better judgment. But, screw it. This is the point where she goes full movie Picard. Also, I'll say that. If you're not familiar with the concept of movie Picard, it is something put forward by Red Letter Media. But the idea is if you are a Star Trek fan, Picard is a very well-natured character in the TV show. And then in the movies, he is Rambo.
Yeah.
He's very violent.
Rambo in a tracksuit, though.
Yeah, so at this point, it's like almost like the queen's breaking point. She like becomes, she has a plan to go back and just murder everyone, and doesn't care how many people are going to die.
Well, she's got an army now.
It is her planet, so the the Gungans, have to do whatever she wants. So
Operation Gungan Shield, it's fine.
So she decides to go back, and then we cut to the Jedi Temple, where Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Anakin are all standing there.
Uh-huh.
And again, the Jedi counselor dicks to a 9-year-old for no reason, where they're literally like in front of his face, like, we're not training the boy. And then they proceed to have a conversation about the boy in front of the boy.
Well, he's like working on R2 or something, right? Like,
No, he's just standing there.
Is he just
listening,
standing there?
And he's not like, he's not there in their minds. Like, they don't acknowledge him at all. They just talk about how he's like scared and angry and too old and can't be a Jedi. And he's just like, Jake Lloyd, it's almost like, it's the worst. It's the worst. Anyway, so they inform Qui-Gon that they're not going to train him. And then this is where I'm getting into the Jedi lore, and I'm interested in what they're not saying in this scene. Because Qui-Gon's just like, I take Anakin as my Padawan learner. Kind of like if you lick food, you claim it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is my sandwich now. But what's weird... So yeah, like, can you do that? Can the Jedi Council be like, no, he can't be a Jedi, but then you'd be like,
it's too bad.
I'm gonna train him.
Well, then what's the point of the council?
I don't know. Unless there's two possibilities in my mind.
Right.
One, there's some subtext going on here where Qui-Gon's basically like, I'm going to leave the order and train this boy. Like that's what he's
That's
saying.
what he's saying without saying it.
Without saying it. Which again, it's a movie. Just tell me what the characters mean.
Right?
Or B, Jedi Masters still have the freedom to teach whoever they want and still belong to the order. They just can't use Jedi resources to do it. Like, you can't train at the temple.
You can't use the Jedi holocrons.
And he's not recognized by the council, I guess, maybe? I don't know. That's the thing. But what muddles this even more is the Jedi's response is basically like, you already have a Padawan. Which again, reading into that line is, yeah, you can do that, but you still got a Padawan.
Yeah, what about Obi-Wan? He needs training, but apparently he doesn't.
Which is so confusing because now they're saying, yeah, you could do that. You could take him on as Padawan, but you can't. Even though it should just be, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, there shouldn't be an acceptance of this idea if certain conditions are met. It should just be, no, you can't do this, Qui-Gon. It can't be like, well, you're still training Obi-Wan, so maybe in a month or two when Obi-Wan graduates and he takes his little Padawan hair thing and puts it over his head and is now a real Jedi, then you can take the kid. But we won't recognize him, but you can still train him.
I just want the audience to know that I was shaking my head the whole time that Brendan was saying that. And then here's the other thing. Then Mace Windu says, you can't have a second Padawan. The code forbids it. What about the council forbidding you from training Anakin?
But that's not a code. That's a group of people.
So the code says nothing about the authority of the council.
Just that you can't have two students.
You just can't have two students.
Unless it's just lightsaber class, because then you could have a lot of them.
That's true, too. I never thought of that. Well, I think you can't have the same Padawan relationship.
I guess that is more of a deeper relationship.
Well, and I think my headcanon for that would be that you could possibly breed competition between your Padawans by accident, which could, lead to the dark side, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, but so if you've got a 9-year-old and Obi-Wan Kenobi as your two Padawans, I don't think they're in competition.
That's true. That particular situation, it's probably fine.
Because, yeah, if you got two kids, you're like, well, only one of you can become a true Jedi. Yeah, those two kids are going to be Sith.
Yeah, well, we're talking about a Jedi code that was probably written 1,000 years ago, so it's not like there's little, subheaders under it that, well, if they're at least 10 years apart in age, then it should be fine. Don't worry about it.
We'll leave those details up to the council, who should be smart enough to be able to debate and deliberate to find a solution.
But they're not. They're just jerks. So yeah, so they're like, well, Obi-Wan's your Padawan, and Qui-Gon's like, well, he's ready for the trials.
Yeah.
Which then my question is, do they have a dark side cave room somewhere in this temple?
I have to imagine so.
Because I would imagine that's what the trial is. It's facing your darkest fear / the dark side and not giving into it.
Yes.
Just like Luke did in his I imagine it's in the prequel films, it's a very high-tech version of what Luke did.
Yeah, it's basically a Star Wars holodeck, but with the Force.
This is where we're gonna. I bet I'm forgetting some episode of the Clone Wars where they establish what a trial is like, and I'm just.
Yeah, well, because the one that sticks out of my head for the Clone Wars is when they go Kyber crystal hunting with the kids.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's something with Ahsoka that's similar.
There's gotta be, but maybe not. Maybe there isn't. And maybe that's why Luke's training was so special.
Well, he was way too old. Anyway, so Qui-Gon's like, he's ready. I can't teach him anymore. Obi-Wan's ready
to go.
He's ready to go. And then the Jedi are like, you know what? Stop focusing on this. Let's put this on the side burner. The Queen's going back to Naboo.
What are we doing about that?
You should go with her, and maybe that Sith guy will show up.
Yeah.
And this is the point where they're like, okay, we're going to send both of you to go deal with this Sith guy. I just want to call back one of my notes where Mace Windu said that they will exhaust all their resources to find out the identity of their attacker.
Yeah.
Which just then boils down to them sending them back out to find this Sith guy.
With no more help.
No.
They can't send Kit Fisto or any other Jedi. It's just these two, a master and an apprentice, going with a 14-year-old queen, an 8-year-old desert slave kid, and a Gungan.
To go fight a Sith Lord.
To go fight a Sith Lord
And
who they haven't seen for ages because they're like, Sith Lord, that's impossible.
They have no idea how strong he is.
No idea. They don't even know if he's the master or the apprentice.
That's it. And that's like they could show up on Naboo and there's the master with him, right?
Yeah.
So,
now what?
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so they decide to send them back. Maybe you might be able to justify their actions under the thought that they don't believe that he's a Sith Lord.
Right.
Like, to them, this is not truly a threat.
It's just a scary looking man.
Especially coming from Qui-Gon Jinn, the rebellious Jedi who like doesn't follow the code.
That's true. He's pushing really hard to train an 8-year-old, and that's a no-no.
Well, for all they know is like every couple of years, Qui-Gon comes running into this council and is like, I found a Sith Lord. Also, I found a virgins in the Force. This could be the 5th time this has happened.
I would love that. I want to see the Qui-Gon Jinn trilogy just be 3 movies of that.
Each movie starts exactly... No, each act of each movie
starts each
exactly
act of each movie. And, like, you can just see this from kid Obi-Wan to teenager Obi-Wan. Just this guy being like, my master's an idiot. Why can't I just pass these trials and move out on my own? No, but Obi-Wan! This time it's real virgins!
Put on your tinfoil hat or the midichlorians will reach your mind.
Oh my god.
Okay, so yeah, the council's like, you gotta go with the queen, find out what's going on. Our exhaustive resources. The only thing that we can, send during these peace times when there's nothing really for the Jedi to do.
I love it. They don't even send a ship.
No,
they're just like, go on her ship. You're going there anyway. Save us some bucks.
Yep. The budget of the Jedi spent all that money on that 5th tower that houses the council. They don't got any more money for anything else.
Freaking Obi-Wan and Mace Windu going for milkshakes at Dexter Jetsters after. We saved some money this time, Yoda.
Do you know what they call a cheeseburger? A Naboo Royale with cheese.
Oh.
Okay, back on track. So after the Jedi Council, we cut to they're back on the landing platform.
Yeah.
And it opens with Obi-Wan saying, "It's not disrespect, Master, it's the truth." Which is a really good way to be disrespectful to your master.
What a line to open a scene on.
Well, you don't know what he said beforehand, right?
No.
He could have been like, Qui-Gon, you need to stop wearing such revealing clothing when we're alone. It's not disrespectful, Master. It's the truth.
Nobody wants to see you in a bantha thong.
It could be anything that he said. But we're believing that it's because Obi-Wan is upset about the whole boy thing, right?
Right.
And that's from the context of the conversation that continues. Qui-Gon, in response to that, says, from your point of view, which is a nice little...
It rhymes.
It rhymes to Obi-Wan being like, well, Darth Vader did kill your father from a certain point of view.
Let's not get into that spoiler.
I'm okay with that, though. Like, as far as, like, a callback, that's, like, a nice little thing. Because it's not exactly the same, but it's something that came from Obi-Wan's master. So you kind of see the
progression. The
lineage of that information. So it's a nice little tidbit. That's how you kind of do a little bit of fan service right there.
Yeah, you don't say, Anakin Skywalker meet Obi-Wan Kenobi. Hello. I'm a kid.
So Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon have their little fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then Qui-Gon quite literally puts Obi-Wan in like a timeout. Like he literally like points and he's like, go do a thing. And Obi-Wan kind of like huffs off. And then Anakin, who we then choked down, Anakin was there the whole time.
That's where it was. Because I didn't realize they did this twice, because I knew Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon had a conversation about, like, how important this prophecy is, or, like, how powerful Anakin is.
And how the boy is dangerous?
Well,
That's this scene.
Yes. Well, he's just out of shot tinkering with R2. And by just out of shot, I mean, like, pan down, and because he's 8, he's out of shot. Like, he's listening to all of this.
You wonder why he turns to the dark side in 20 years.
So he's mad because everywhere he goes, he's freezing. His mom is still enslaved. People are like, you're too old to be a Jedi, which is his dream, to be a Jedi and save people. And then every time people talk about him, with him around, no one uses diplomacy or decorum. They're just like, he's going to be an issue, and he's super strong. I'm pointing, for those who can't see, at a little Anakin over there tinkering with R2-D2. It's like, but we're not going to do anything to address that.
Even Qui-Gon's just like, okay, yes, I agree with everything that you just said, and that it's hilarious to me that, like, George put this in here. And maybe this is George's genius. Maybe this is one of the reasons, like, everyone just is like, Anakin, like, maybe for years, Anakin heard people talk behind his back. Like, people either loved Anakin or hated Anakin.
Yeah. He's the cilantro of the Jedi world.
Yeah. Cilantro of the Jedi world. Master Cilantro. Sorry. Jedi Knight Cilantro. Yeah. Anyway. So, okay, so they have their little fight. Right. And then Anakin literally says, like, I don't want to be any trouble.
The poor kid.
He's 9 years old. And everyone hates him for no reason, which is strangely reflective of Jake Lloyd after this movie came out.
Dude, I feel so bad.
He did fine in this movie, by the way. He's a kid. Give him a break.
Yeah.
A kid who's being directed by George Lucas. Whether you like him or hate him, George Lucas himself will say
he's not a director.
He's not an actor's director. So, like, that kind of person is not going to do well with a child actor. I think even a really good actor's director would have trouble with a child director. It's where you need to get someone.
Definitely a child director. You do not want that to happen.
Child director.
And action!
Okay, you're going to use a lightsaber, and you swing at each other and do some flips, and then you're going to fall, but you're not going to fall. Okay? Go now!
Oh.
And cut! It's perfect. Print it. Check the gate. Okay. So yeah, he's like, I don't want to be any trouble.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I keep hearing people talk about midichlorians. What are midichlorians? And this is the one, like, here's the thing. I can explain away a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And, like, I don't think there's been any part of this movie that has broken the Star Wars universe, but I'm still a very strong proponent that the concept of midichlorians break the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
For one simple reason, because time and time again, we've heard people use the excuse that the Force is like magic, so you can kind of do whatever you want with it to a certain extent. But the moment you try to quantify it in some kind of scientific term, you break that. You can no longer say the Force is mystical.
Right.
So this is the one decision out of all the things that George did in the Star Wars universe that I feel 100% was a mistake.
That's why we never hear about them again.
No. We never hear about it again, except in our Star Wars Bible. And even then, it's basically just because it's
a footnote that has to be there.
It has to be there.
Because it's such a strong point of Anakin's initial character development that is then just dumped for the next, well, for everybody. I mean, if you take a look at The Last Jedi and Luke explaining the Force to Rey, there's no mention at all of, like, a quantifiable blood test you can do to see how Force strong you are. And I absolutely agree. The Force for me was always magic, and it works as magic. But when you bring science to explain magic, it's dumb.
Well, and even to jump back to our Last Jedi discussion, people are like, Ghost Yoda do the lightning, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's like you hear people defending it like, well, the Force is mystical and magic. And I'm all for that scene. I'm fine with that scene. But it undermines your argument where it's like, oh, well, it's magic. They can do what they can at certain points. But then you go, well, wait, the Force is quantifiable.
Yeah.
So you need to explain that in some way. And I've also talked about how, like, I'm not a fan of putting quantifiable numbers to things in movies because it's really hard to keep track of that stuff and make it make sense. Anyway, so midichlorians, the explanation that Qui-Gon gives is that they are microscopic life forms that live in all our cells.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure you can't have a microscopic life form in a cell because cells are the smallest form of life.
Yeah, I'm not touching this. Maybe? It's been a long time since Bio 20.
Well, here's the thing. Oh, I bumped my microphone. Sorry, everybody. Here's the thing. So my understanding, and granted, I have Bio 30 from high school as my highest level of bio school, so I don't really know. But my understanding is that cells are like the basic building blocks of life.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different sizes of cells, but I've never heard of a microorganism that could actually live in a cell because cells are so small. It would basically just be another cell in a cell.
Right. So, but they use the Force to get there.
I guess, and then they connect us to the Force somehow.
It's a horrible idea. Especially when what the Force was already perfect. Yoda explains it just fine in the original trilogy. You don't need to come along and be like, well, we're going to science this up.
Yeah.
Because now we can measure it because we live in a time where you have to measure Jedi's midichlorians.
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, if this is going on, how come in 20 years, if you have a baby in an Imperial medical facility, it doesn't get a midichlorian test and vaporized if it's Force sensitive or off to Sheev's Scythia Academy?
For all we know, that could be a thing.
That's true.
We're just not sure. Because, Rebels has established that there are kind of like, they're not full Sith, but there are Force sensitive people under the Emperor.
Yeah.
Kind of like in the expanded universe where he had like the hands
hand of the Empire.
Emperor. Yeah, but there's a lot about DNA that actually break the Star Wars universe. And I specifically when we hit Rogue One, I want to talk about it. But for now, we'll leave the DNA discussion at that. The only other point that I'd really like to make about midichlorians before we wrap things up is my headcanon that fixes this enough that I am okay with it. Because I do say it breaks the Star Wars universe, but from a purely canon standpoint, this is how I rectified in my mind, is that there isn't a causation with midichlorians. Like, it's not like midichlorians give you the Force. It's a correlation. So, like, you are strong with the Force. Midichlorians are drawn to the Force. Thus, you would have a higher midichlorian count in your blood. And just somewhere along the line, some Jedi scientist, which is a hilarious thought all on its own, just made a mistake or just fudged some data to fit their particular bias. Somehow.
We got to make these midichlorians fit a prophecy.
Exactly. So dumb.
That's Rian Johnson's trilogy right there.
Oh, God, I hope not. You know what? Yeah, we won't talk about that. We'll just move on. That's it for this episode, guys. Thank you for listening. Mm-hmm. We are getting really close here. Now.
This is a slog, but we're getting to the end.
So please, if you stuck through it this long,
stick around.
We're almost there. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.